All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to trace the incredible story of a really crucial part of the Pakistan Army, the Regiment of Artillery. We're talking about how it went from this tiny inherited force to the massive, complex arsenal it is today.
So, yeah, that's a pretty powerful statement, right? It tells you right away we're not just talking about any old unit. This one is considered the most prestigious. And that reputation, that prestige, it's all tied up in its long history, its evolution, and its absolutely critical role. And that's exactly the story we're going to unpack.
Okay, so let's meet him. The regiment is commonly known by its nickname ARTY. Now, on paper, it's a combat support branch. But here's what's really important to get. It reports straight to the top, to the Army's general headquarters. That direct line puts ARTY right at the center of all the major strategic planning and operations. A huge deal. Now, to really get a handle on the ARTY of today, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning. The story kicks off in 1947, a really chaotic time with the partition of British India. And as the subcontinent was being divided, so was its military. The Royal Indian Artillery was literally split in two. And Pakistan's piece of that legacy, well, that was the seed for its brand new force. And look at this number. 8. Just 8. That single number tells you everything you need to know about how humble these beginnings were. When it was first formed, the Royal Pakistan Artillery, that was its name back then, had only 8 regiments. That's it. It was basically a skeleton force, and its job was to build an entire national defense capability, pretty much from scratch. So, to get that skeleton crew on its feet, for the first decade or so, British influence was still really strong. The regiment pretty much followed the British military playbook, and they even had British officers helping out with the admin side of things. But you have to remember, this was always meant to be temporary. It was just a transition, a starting point, before they built their own unique identity. Okay, and that brings us to 1956. This year, this is the single most important turning point in the regiment's entire history. This was the moment it basically shed its colonial-era skin, got a massive reorganization, and forged a whole new doctrine and a new name that pointed to where it was headed. And this timeline here really lays it all out. You see, in 1956, they dropped the Royal from the name. It just became the Regiment of Artillery. But honestly, the name change was the smallest part of it. The real game changer was the decision to completely drop the old British system they'd inherited and switch over, lock, stock, and barrel, to the United States Army doctrine. So you might be asking, what did that actually mean on the ground? Well, let's break it down. Under the old British system, you had 24 guns in a regiment, but they were split up into these smaller groups called troops. The new U.S. system, on the other hand, had fewer guns per regiment, only 18, but they were packed into bigger, more powerful 6-gun batteries. This was a fundamental change in how they thought about and used their firepower on the battlefield. And that huge transformation back in 56, well, that really set the stage for everything that came next. It was the launch pad, really, for decades of growth that turned the regiment into the massive, diverse force that it is today. Just look at the sheer scale of that growth on this chart. We started with just 8 regiments back in 1947, right? Well, today, that number has ballooned to over 45 battalion-sized regiments. I mean, that is just a mind-blowing expansion over the last 70-plus years. But here's the thing. It's not just about getting bigger. It's about getting more specialized. Today, the ARTY has at least 9 different kinds of units. I mean, you've got your standard field artillery, sure, but then you have these super mobile self-propelled units, or SP units. You've got the absolutely devastating multiple barrel rocket launchers, the MBRLs, and you even have strategic missile units. And then you throw in specialized mountain regiments for high-altitude combat, and these incredible locating units that are basically the eyes of the force. And what you get is a seriously complex and incredibly capable modern fighting arm. So to quickly recap the whole story here, the Regiment of Artillery starts out tiny, born from the chaos of partition with just 8 units. Then comes that huge pivotal moment in 1956 when it switches over to the American system. And it used that change as a springboard to become the massive, diverse, 45-plus regiment force we see today. What a journey. And all of this kind of brings us to a final big question. I mean, think about it. We live in an age of drone swarms, cyber warfare, and all kinds of messy, asymmetric conflicts. The whole nature of war is changing, right? So that leaves us with this really interesting question to think about. What's the future for a traditional military arm of this size and scale? How does a force like this adapt to make sure it stays not just prestigious, but truly effective on the battlefields of tomorrow?